everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on this rather damp, drizzly and windy day in fair Birmingham. Hope you're all well wherever you are. Thank you for joining us for the Future of Hospitality today. So give you a bit of background for this. My name's Vicky. I'm the patron advisor. I work on the policy team here at the Chamber. We were discussing how we could focus on some certain key industries for a series of webinars to really go through what they're sort of experiencing, how they're weathering this very tough period, and hopefully share some learnings with you as well. So I hope today that you will pick up some really great stuff from our absolutely fantastic guests. Next slide, please, Grace. Just a bit of housekeeping for today. If you could keep your cameras off and yourself muted. If you would like to share a question with our guests, we would absolutely invite you to pop that in the chat. When we get to the section at the end, I will go through your questions and I'll present those to our guests today. In terms of what we've been doing further to these sort of events over the coronavirus period, we've been doing a whole number of different promotional and informational activities. We've set up a hub on our website, our coronavirus hub. We will circulate the details of that round after this webinar, and that contains a whole wealth of information from videos from previous webinars, Q&As, blogs, all kinds of different advice and support from other Chamber members. We also have our free legal and HR helpline. If you are a member, you can access that. And please do get involved and find out more about our policy and campaigning activity. And that's not just on coronavirus, there's Brexit, there's development, there's all kinds of different issues there. In terms of growing over, again, from this period and beyond, we cover a whole wealth of issues through events, through our daily e-news, through our magazine, through our website. So do keep an eye on that. Can I have the next slide, please, Grace? So today's webinar, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Emma from Malmaison and Gemma from Dishoom. As you can imagine, two businesses in the heart of Birmingham who are putting in a lot of different bits and pieces to sort of keep going over this period and really just try and sort of encourage trade and continue to operate safely. So without much further ado today, I'm going to hand you over to Emma from Malmaison, who's going to tell you a little bit more about what they've been doing over there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Vicky. For those of you who know me, I'm Emma, the GM at Malmaison Birmingham. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Birmingham Hoteliers Association, alongside John Angus at Park Regis. I am waiting for the slides. So I thought I'd break today down, so have gone into an introduction to Mal Hotel de Van and our new normality, the expectation of the guest, and what the guest is wanting from us as a hospitality industry at the moment, and then looking to the future, and on the final point, talking about our people. Next slide, please, Vicky. Grace, sorry, and the next one. So this is Malmaison Birmingham. We are in the heart of Birmingham city centre, with 193 bedrooms, including 12 suites and 2 signature suites. The picture on the slide prior was actually our Nirvana suite, and believe it or believe it not, that is booked up now until the middle of September. So people are very much looking for an experience, we found, when they're coming into the city. We are part of the Malmaison Hotel de Van group, and at the moment there are 16 Malmaisons up and down the country, with a further 2 still scheduled to open this year, which we are very excited about. One in Bournemouth, and York is due to open at the back end of this year. So it's really positive to see that despite everything that's happened, the brand is still really excited about bringing on new properties and continuing the projects that we began before we were hit by COVID. Next slide, please, Grace. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you really is the 4 core kind of brand messages that we have at Mal Hotel de Van, and you'll find throughout the presentation that these 4 core kind of values are the things that we put through in all of our marketing, in terms of the attitude towards how we've dealt with COVID. One of them is daring, and we do push the boundaries. Nothing's ever normal in Mal. innovative in the respect that we haven't stood still. COVID actually gave myself and the executive team time to actually think about how we wanted to shape the business. We all know that hospitality is 24/7. We have no time to stop, we have no time to breathe, we just have to consistently keep going because there's the ever guest arriving that needs servicing by our team. So one of the positives of COVID, shall we say, was that it gave us actually the opportunity to stop and think about how we wanted to shape our business moving forward. Passionate, we do love our brand. We tend to stay in our own brand all the time, which is very strange because it's like a busman's holiday. But we do try and create the wow factor as well for all of our guests in everything that we do. And the consistency. So we are the old post office, and lots of hotels in our brand. We have an old prison, we have the old eye infirmary over in Birmingham, so that no two buildings are the same. But what we do try to do is drive consistency, and that's really, really crucial in the times that we're experiencing at the moment. Thanks, Grace. Okay, so our building, when I first got my job here, people used to say to me, well, where is Malmaison? Is it the bit at the side of the mailbox? In fact, no, it's the mailbox, it's what you see. So if you ever do drive past, you're not looking at the mailbox, you're actually looking at all of the bedrooms. So I like to get that one in because it's no secret TARDIS at the back of the building that no one's aware of. So on to the new normality, how have we coped? Next slide, Grace, sorry. We have, as ever, been a little bit cheeky in regards to back to normality, shall we say. And our campaign was very much around trying to get some form of normality back. We all know that it's not normal, but we do have to try and find a norm in order for our teams to feel settled and comfortable in what they do. This campaign went down very well. There was only a couple of guests who believed that we shouldn't be going back to normal. I think they missed the mal point. Next slide. So I imagine, like many of you, you've had to make significant changes to the way in which you operate, the items that we have in our bedrooms, the items that we are allowed to have in those bedrooms, as well as all of the social distancing and hand sanitising stations, etc., that we now will become part of our norm across our industry moving forward. One of the main things is obviously the depths of cleaning and making sure that everywhere is perceived to be clean and is actually clean. And I think that's one of the big messages that we've had to get across to the team, is that this is not just for a short time, that this is actually how we have to operate safely moving forwards, and making sure that we are keeping our customers, but moreover our staff, safe, and that they feel comfortable in order to deliver great service to the customers that come to us. Obviously, food and beverage has changed a lot, and I've received a text message from my chief exec only about 10 minutes ago in regards to potentially food and beverage closing down in Birmingham, which was obviously his fears. We're not aware of any of that as yet, but the situation we find ourselves in is so fluid that we just have to keep moving with it and remain positive very much for our team. Next slide, Grace. So in true Mal style, these are our socially distanced markers that are around the building now. So a lot of play on music connotations. So Easy Tiger, One Direction, a socially distancing prop, not a band. And my favourite one is actually the spacing in the urinals, which is on the song Don't Stand So Close to Me. So we really have kept our brand and what we believe in from being daring, innovative in the way that we work, passionate and being consistent. So every Malmaison hotel that you walk into has exactly the same branding, it has exactly the same stickers in order to create that consistency for people coming to our hotels. My favourite is the very important purpose sign, which is on every other table in our brasserie, which allows social distancing without removing tables and chairs in the restaurant, which could have actually left it looking very bare. Next slide, great. So the change in guests have changed a lot. The expectation is that we are COVID safe. Malmaison Birmingham now has 2 accreditations, excluding the accreditation that it now has in the spa, which has been tested. We have had virtual walk rounds to show that we are COVID compliant. This includes obviously increased cleaning regime, socially distanced protocols, the use of a QR code for track and trace for our guests that enter the brasserie and the bar. We've also found from research that a lot of our guests appreciate a pre-communication. So a video was made, which is in a link that you receive prior to arrival, to explain the things that we have done in our hotels to make sure that the stay is as safe as possible. It is obviously important, and the heart of what we do is obviously that warm welcome from reception and putting the guest at ease as soon as they walk through the door. Making sure that they feel safe being in our building, and that service is still what we do. And finally, obviously, flexibility is key. Government guidelines change on a daily basis, the implementation of local lockdowns, making sure that you are absolutely up to date with the media is vital. Moreover, the government website, should I say, to make sure that you are compliant and that you don't get caught out by a guest. Next slide, Grace. So it's what we do. I hope, hospitality people on the call will understand that customer service is the blood and bones of what we do in our industry, and we have to put that first at the forefront of everything that we do, to make sure that that service is absolutely what they deserve. Guests are scared, maybe, cautious about coming to the hotels. So that customer service and that friendly customer service, that personalised customer service, is exactly what we are pushing with the team. We've enhanced our training from a customer services perspective, and we've also done specialist complaint handling training based on COVID. Some of the complaints that we've received from our guests is that we've removed the soft furnishings out of the bedroom and it doesn't have the mal effect anymore. When we explain the rationale and the reasons behind that, it's surprising how much the guest then understands, and that doesn't turn into a complaint. So again, that communication is really, really key to our guests, both before they arrive, while they're here, and also post, to get their feedback on what we can do to improve. I think sometimes we do get a little bit scared of receiving that feedback because we're cautious of what people may say, but it's absolutely vital. No one's been through this before, so we have to get that feedback from them in order to get better. And making sure that we put the guest over the profit. And I know that's a hard one, I know. And the positives of this is what we have seen will be that the guests will generally stay inside the hotel for the duration of their stay. So if a guest is staying with us at a weekend, we found that the bar and the brasserie has been exceptionally busy. By looking after them, it makes them feel secure and maybe may not want to kind of venture out into the city, which is what's made it work here for us now. So look to the future. Does anyone have a crystal ball? Next slide, Grace. The future is that we don't know at this point in time, but I've shared with you some of the things that we've done with our team. And the first thing is actually the teams. We've already seen a number of team members make the decision to leave the hospitality industry because they don't feel that they have that security. And it's no longer there. So for me, one of my missions this year is to make sure that we are working with the schools and the colleges to make sure that the future of the hospitality industry isn't lost. Also putting time into the team that are here to grow their skills by doing seminars and webinars like this for themselves in their own individual departments. Working together. The city has a huge opportunity, hopefully still, in 2022 with the Commonwealth Games to put Birmingham really on the map. We must work together, as far as I'm concerned, as an industry, to take initiatives to ensure that the Commonwealth and the rest of the world watching us see Birmingham as a real destination, in order for us to create a legacy for the future of hospitality in Birmingham. We are aware that the restrictions will be in place for a long time, so social distancing, as far as I'm concerned, needs to become part and parcel of what we do, the same as checking in a guest and giving the guest a key card. We know that there's less guests because some people are still scared, some people are still shielding, some people don't feel comfortable going out. So it's making the most of the guest that's in house. There is a link on this slide to a really good YouTube video that I use with the team, which is all about upselling and how to grow your sales through great customer service. It's definitely one to watch that I've been shown previously. Obviously, we can drive sales as much as we can. However, we must look at how we're going to become lean in the future. So looking at the processes, we've utilised QR codes quite a lot around the building. And we've also enhanced our guest service by putting an online e-magazine into our guest bedrooms. So the guests can actually download that onto their tablets, their device, and read it on the train on the way home, which is just an added benefit to the guest. We've also introduced Bon Appetit, which is on our tables in the bar. So you can now order your drinks and pay for your drinks from the comfort of your bar table, which has proved really, really positive. And technology is something that we are going to have to work with, whether that be an app or whether that be the utilisation of technology in our meeting space due to social distancing, so that groups of people across the country can all come together as we are today to obviously share their training or mandatory training or kind of group gatherings together. This week I have started having conversations with people in regards to the let of bedrooms for exhibitions, so that each bedroom could be a separate exhibition space. We know that large mass gatherings is not something that we can do at the minute, but it's a way of the hospitality, the hotel industry, sorry, utilising the space that it does have in order to support all of the government guidelines. And for me, it's about winning business together. We are working as the Hoteliers Association with the city to tender for any key events that could potentially take place in Birmingham, making sure that we've got a cohesive approach with each other so that we can actually not only win business for our own companies, but also as a city as a whole. Next slide. Some other initiatives we've taken is obviously staycation. We know that a lot of people are making the decision to go on holiday in the UK. Yes, we don't have a beautiful seaside outside. I actually have the Aston Expressway that I can see outside as we speak. However, we do have some really fantastic things and attractions that people can come to when they come to Birmingham. And for me, it's about utilising those and making sure that they're shouted about by all of us, not just by the attractions themselves. We are looking for a cleaner, greener future. Cleaning products across our hotel have changed, so we've introduced an ozone cleaning chemical into our bedrooms and public areas, along with in-use science in our kitchen, which is all environmentally friendly. It also supports obviously COVID and asthma. People with asthma don't particularly want to go out because of chemicals in bedrooms. This is absolutely chemical free, which has really, really improved our standard of cleaning as well. We all know contactless payments is now how we live our life, but it's also contactless in terms of our guests checking in and checking out. A lot of our guests don't want to crowd in reception to check in and check out, so allowing them to pre-check in before arrival. I think one thing that will come in is key cards onto mobile phones to allow people to actually access their bedrooms without even having to come into human contact. There was an article published around about 24 hours ago, which Thomas Cook and the SOTC, and they have claimed that 35% of the guests that are travelling are willing to pay more to know that a venue's secure. So we will be pushing on our social media over the coming weeks the accreditations that we have obtained post-COVID. This might be a controversial one dependent on who's on the call. But we are also encouraging guests to book through ourselves directly. A guest pays £190 for a room on a travel site. The hotel itself only gets £126. So the perceived value from the guest is slightly distorted. We believe that by bringing the guest and encouraging the guest to book directly to us, that the full revenue then goes into the hotel and allows us to deliver that great hospitality. Part of another article that I read this week was also about short-term goals and strategies. We all have to have the strategy and we all have to have a goal that we need to achieve. However, the landscape that we have currently is changing so fast that the research suggests that our strategy should be only 4 weeks in terms of their planning until we are aware of how the pandemic is going to affect us in the long term. Next, Grace. Malmaison Birmingham's strategy for the next 4 weeks and probably moving forward is putting our people at the heart of what we do. People will get us through this, our teams will get us through this, and their positivity will get us through what we are currently witnessing. We require our people to follow the processes that have been put into place. So for me, the team are absolutely vital, and managing some of the items that are on, that you can see on there, will help our teams get through this. Mal as a brand have put together a mental health questionnaire for all of the team returning to work to see whether there is anything that we can do to support the team. Some people may be dealing with grief, concerns over their own health, financial worries, isolation and loneliness, and just making sure that we are actually there for our people on a human level as well as a business level. I hope I haven't bored you too much. If you wish to come over for a coffee or you wish to contact me, my contact details are on there.
Thank you very much for that, Emma. That was absolutely fabulous. So just a reminder to you all, if you do have any questions for either our guests today, do pop those in the chat box, and thank you, Rosalind and David, for doing that. Without any further ado, we're going to switch over from hotels to restaurants, and we've got Gemma from Dishoom to talk about how it's going there.
Hi everyone. Okay, obviously we are completely different from Mal. Our COVID experience has been very different. We originally started, we were due to open in March. We did 2 days of softs and then got shut down. So that kind of threw everything out. We had a whole new team, and so we did nothing until July. We then obviously came back in July. We started on July the 16th. Began getting ready. We had the advantage because we were a new site. We could then sort of look at the building overall. So before we even got our staff in, we made sure that the actual site, we did almost like a walk round of it, looked at pinch points and looked at how we would flow guests through. We kind of had to take everything back from steps of service to the actual building and its structure. So just from a structural point of view, we obviously had to put in social distancing. We had to look at how, say, the toilets would work. So even now our toilets, as you go in like between the urinals, instead of just blocking one out, we've had special screens put in. When you go to the sinks, there's special screens put in so that we can keep people isolated that way. We've then also changed our decor. So obviously we have to have screens and taking tables away, but to kind of make it look more Dishoomy, we've had specialist screens that fit in with our actual decor. So if you're a guest, you wouldn't really know the difference between having a COVID screen in and just having the regular decor that was there prior to us opening in July. We then obviously had to look at actually how we were going to serve our guests. You know, we work in a restaurant, there's a lot of contact with guests, even from just, you know, taking orders, dropping food, taking drinks, checking guests in. So we then had to sort of break all that down. So we really looked at steps of service and how we could change things. And it's just small things. Obviously, Dishoom is renowned for having queues outside. We can no longer do that because obviously with social distancing, the spaces we can have outside, we can only hold, say maybe not even 10 groups anymore, about 5 or 6. So we went from being a site that we literally had probably about 40% bookings and then the rest would be walk-ins. We've now flipped it and we do 70% bookings to 40% walk-ins. We've also found, especially with the government eat out scheme, we've been fully booked. So it's been great, but we've had to then manage that increase in numbers. We've then obviously put signage everywhere to direct people through. If you've been to our site, you'll see our biggest pinch point is our front door. Unfortunately, the toilets and the front door are very close to each other, so we had to look really carefully at how we moved both guests going to the toilets and actually guests checking in through. And it just meant doing simple basics, like we've taken our hosts and we put them outside. So you actually check in using an iPad outside, and that way we don't have to have people actually at the desk. We can just move them through, and then a guide takes them through to their tables. In terms of once people are actually sat down, we've done we've put hand sanitizer on tables so guests can sanitize their own hands. There's a hand sanitizer as you walk in. We also then have little cards on the table that explain how our procedures have changed. Menu introductions have changed to our guests. Our guests are explained to how it's all going to work, how we do things differently, so that they understand these are the changes we've made and why. We've cleared our tables. We don't have anything on them. They're just clear tables when you sit down. We have all our cutlery is in a contained pot that's sealed with a bag over it. So when we do it, we take the bag off. And so again, the guests can see that, you know, it's a sanitized, clean cutlery pot just specifically for them. And you can watch it be clean. We can watch the staff cleaning them as well when they're doing it. So they have to sanitize them and leave them for a while. No? Okay. We also obviously have protection for our actual staff. So before we even let anybody into our building, we obviously made sure they all did a COVID questionnaire prior to beginning training. And then every single day before any of our staff are allowed into our building, they must complete a health and safety questionnaire. And again, if anyone marks any no's or anything like that, automatically they're not allowed in sight. They have to get tested, and they're out for at least 7 days, maybe 14, depending on the results of those tests. If we've got staff that live together, then again, that affects all the people that live in that house, and they can't come to work. And we've had to be very strict on that. We don't have anyone in the business that may have any symptoms whatsoever. The other flip side of that, again, from not only from keeping our team safe, from a visual side of things, we now have a staff member on from the moment we open to the moment we close, and their specific role is just cleaning. So they just go around constantly. There's 160 points and they have to clean every single point. So it's from very simple things like cleaning the door handles, cleaning PDQ machines, cleaning the staff room, changing lockers, and just constantly moving around, you know, cleaning high chairs, anything that anyone can touch, whether it be a guest or a staff member, has to be cleaned, and it runs on a 45-minute rotation. So every 45 minutes, you've got somebody who is actually then cleaning. So again, we've got special COVID sanitizer, which will therefore sterilise all the work surfaces. On top of that, we've then had specialist air units put in. So they're used by FBI and the hospitals. So if somebody does sneeze, within a matter of seconds, that sneeze is sucked out of our environment. So again, it keeps you safe. And they are dotted. You wouldn't even see them. They're like little speakers. If you come into site, please feel free to try and find them. And they're hidden all around the restaurant. But it means that way we can just have that common safety. We can tell our guests quite clearly, you know, this is as safe as the FBI headquarters right now. So it's a good place to be. Let me think, what else have we got? In terms of obviously training, we've also made sure all our staff before returning to work we do an online course called with Flow. And we had obviously our original training, and that's now been developed again. And it now obviously has training that covers COVID. There's changes in steps of service. And just so the staff, before they even got into work, had to have completed that training so that they were educated on how we were going to operate. We also had to look at just making sure that we don't have big groups, especially when we initially opened, because we had to do a lot of training. Our team had been out for so many months and they were a new team. So we found using things like Zoom, just Google. So we do all our training via the internet and stuff like that. So we're not actually having to have big groups in site doing training sessions. So again, we can keep that social distancing all the time. I think the biggest thing we found is we have to constantly evolve. Obviously, yes, the government change everything every once in a while, but we also need to make sure that we can be running in a practice and constantly asking ourselves, is there a better way we could do this? And even yesterday we had this conversation ourselves. We were sat in our managers meeting, and so we have made a couple of changes just to the way we're going to operate, because we think actually that will work better. So it's just that constant, how can we improve? How can we make it safe? How can we make it better for our guests? And we also ask our guests, every single person who dines with us, for feedback, not just about COVID, but about food and everything. And again, it's good to get their perspective on how they feel in the business, if they feel safe, and again, how we can improve. So that's it. I think that's it really on what we've done for COVID. So I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gemma. And I'd have to say, sort of from a personal perspective, everyone who that I know has popped into Dishoom since you've opened has been raving about everything you've put in place. So well done that really well. Have a few questions from our guests for both of you here, Emma and Gemma. We've got a question from Rosalind re mask wearing. So there's new guidance regarding the wearing of masks by venue staff and delegates attending meeting and events. Could I ask what venues on this call are doing in regards to that? So what are you guys going to put into place in terms of mask wearing, especially, I suppose, in the wake that people might be starting to think about having business meetings in person?
Emma, are you going to say, from our point of view, all our staff are already masked in masks. The only people that don't are those who have, say, medical conditions, of which we've asked them to provide sort of paperwork to prove that there's a reason why. And we're currently questioning or looking into possibly putting them in visors at this stage. So I'll pass over to Emma.
So we have, the team member has the choice, because some people really like the visors, some people really like the masks. The masks seem to be going down better. All of our food and beverage staff, reception, Starbucks have all got masks on, especially during service, but we've also now enforced mask wearing in any public areas. So, and that's for the customer as well. So our signage has gone up to state that if you are in a public area, you do need to wear your mask. So that's being enforced by us.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you both. A bit of a question regarding track and trace. I mean, obviously we've seen the news about potential changes in Birmingham as well, with enforcement coming down harder probably than ever before, and certainly more in other cities. So what percentage of your guests are providing their sort of track and trace details with quite easily? And I suppose, do you see that potentially being an issue for you guys moving forward?
I don't think it's an issue moving forward. I think we've got a good process in place. There's around about 65% of people who are coming through are readily giving that information to us. Unfortunately, there's a lot of Joe blogs and Mrs. Smiths, you know, which doesn't really help. Very, very strange email addresses, but I suppose if you have a paper base, that's very easy to spot, which would then you be able to ask the question in regards to whether it's correct. For us with the QR code, it's slightly more difficult, but we do request that when we go over and take a drinks order, especially in the bar, that they can provide us with the proof that they have tracked and traced.
We operate a bit differently. That's why we've moved our hosts outside. So we have a member of staff stood on our front door. So you can't actually read into the business without having actually given us the details. Obviously, we can't force people to, because it's their choice, but most people understand our reasoning. And so if you've booked, obviously we've got your details, you can't make a booking without it. And if you're a walk-in, then we just take those details before we let you into the business. So we keep it safe by having that member there on the front door just to take that information.
Brilliant, thank you both. Joe Jones has asked about Eat Out to Help Out in regards to, obviously it ends next Monday. What are your feelings on extending that, or do you think that we will start to see more widespread adoption of that, not even potentially throughout Birmingham, but through hospitality in general, with hearing how it's actually been quite a success for some businesses?
From our point of view, it was, I mean, we've had to bring staff in from London to cope with the demand for it. It's been a great opportunity for us, especially with us. We came out of softs and we went straight into that. I believe obviously it depends on the government. It has switched the way the business runs though, because I feel less people maybe come out on a Saturday now because they were coming out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. And I think it's been a good exercise because it's actually got people back out, which is probably the most fundamental. Whether the government will carry on, I'm not sure. And whether businesses can afford without that support to do it is a big thing. You know, it's all right saying, oh, you're going to give, like we do 50% off food, but to carry that deficit and obviously carry the staffing and all the costs that go into it, having been closed for how many months and have no revenue, is it as easy to say, oh, we're going to carry it on, if that makes sense? Just the costs now, especially with what we've been through this year.
I absolutely second that. We have had conversations at board level in regards to whether we can submit a proposal to continue it into September. I think one of the challenges for the industry, especially hotels more so than restaurants, is that the corporates aren't coming back in September. So we have to have a reason to come to us. So we are very much pushing for that to be continued. And our chief exec is kind of pushing that and rallying that for the hospitality industry across the country. We did have the conversation similarly to yourselves as to whether we could sustain that ourselves, but it is unsustainable. And I don't think it will have the necessary impact that the government scheme has had if it was just us doing it as a standalone, and if every hotel or every restaurant does something different, there's no standardisation to it. So I do think, and I would hope, that the government would see its value and continue to do that for us.
Thank you both. I suppose a bit of a question from me here. Working where we do in the chamber, we hear from a lot of businesses who are really hoping for a very, very busy and successful Christmas period. So, you know, I know it's quite early to be talking about the C word, but what are you guys feeling in terms of, cheeky, what are you guys feeling in terms of, you know, are you getting those inquiries through for Christmas? Are we seeing corporate inquiries? Is it mostly individual inquiries? Do we feel like that's going to pick up and we're going to see more of that? Or is it going to be a quiet year of hospitality, do we think?
I think Dishoom are going to be very busy. I think it will be, dependent on restrictions, I believe that it will be the bars and the restaurants that will be busier than your archetypal office party, if you like. You know, how do you socially distance a dance floor? So unless those restrictions are lifted at this point in time, we are getting inquiries, but it's very tentative and people don't want to commit to anything. My thought process is that it will be the bars and the the restaurants that are busy, because it allows you to gather in, you know, your groups of friends more so than work colleagues. Yeah, I like that checkerboard. So yeah, trying to socially distance somebody on a dance floor is going to be very, very difficult. And obviously, as much as I'd love live music back in the bar, you know, that's still something that we can't do. So I think it will heavily depend on, it'll be very last minute, I think, if it comes in from a meetings and events perspective. We are getting inquiries, and I understand the ICC have been quite busy in terms of their inquiries, but I just think we'll see a shift in pattern.
I think it's a little bit different for us. So we've only been releasing bookings on a monthly basis, and to be honest, we only started having the conversation about Christmas kind of yesterday. We're also waiting, because at the moment you're only allowed parties of 6 in a restaurant, so that will make a big change. You have strict rules about you can't move round, so again, how that's going to work. And then we are also, again, very aware, if companies are having to scale back this year due to financials, is then having a big knees up going to be a top priority over maybe keeping 2 people in a job next year? So I think it's kind of very much the next couple of months, and again, the government will dictate a lot with whatever policies they put in place as to how Christmas will run for us, I think.
Well, thank you both. I think that was a really fantastic overview of how you guys are sort of both doing and dealing with it separately as businesses. Oh, I've got one more question just popped in. So how do you feel regarding 2021? Are you confident hospitality will increase? Do you feel RevPAR will increase? You're on mute, Emma.
Sorry, from a hotel's perspective, that RevPAR year on year, I don't think we'll see that kind of increase. For us, it very much depends on what the corporate market does. We have got a lot of leisure guests in the hotel at the moment. When furlough ends, people will either be sent back to work or will be, you know, unfortunately, the truth of it is looking for new work. So I don't see it growing next year. I do think that we'll bounce back. We are always the most resilient industry when it comes to bouncing back following recessions. 2021, I think as long as we do better than 2020, we're on to a winner.
From a restaurant point of view, I mean, I think we have the advantage. We have the local community, and just since opening up post-COVID, like since the COVID started, I mean, we've been busier than we expected. You know, the support in the local community has been great. So I think as long as that support and people still come out, we should be great. Yes, it's probably not going to set the world on fire, but I think if we just can sustain how we've been doing over the last month or so, we should be good. And then hopefully more and more people. It's just about confidence, isn't it, now as well, for us? That's the big thing.
Well, both, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for attending today. We will be popping you out a little follow-up note. I have just one more slide to run through with you, which is some follow-up events that we've got coming up. In particular, I am hosting we are hosting an event entitled The Future of the Tourism Economy, with a particular focus obviously on Birmingham, but looking more widely as well to the rest of the country. So I suppose touching on Emma's point about staycations, etc. So do keep an eye out for that one. We've got the NEC definitely coming in for that one, another guest to be confirmed. So if you want to find out more about how they're sort of looking and feeling when we're coming up to these deadlines and this potential 1st of October, then that will be a really good one to attend. We also, don't forget, have the B word looming over us all. So we are hosting a webinar tomorrow about Brexit and where we are with that. On Thursday, we have some online networking. We have our big Future Face Annual Awards on Friday, which is a real must attend. If you have young people in your business, or if you just like a good excuse to raise a glass, some of the fantastic talent in our region, do log into that. We have some virtual social networking on the Friday, the 11th of September. And the event I'm talking about is the Future of the Tourist Economy also on the 11th. As I say, that will be hosted with the NEC, and I'm waiting on one other guest to be confirmed, but that'll be a really, really fantastic event. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope to see you again soon. In particular, thank you to Emma and Gemma for joining us and sharing their thoughts and wisdom today. So thank you everyone. Have a great afternoon.